Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. If you are, hi, my name is Jay, and I usually post disturbing, terrifying, or depressing content because I cover true crime cases. But starting today, I will be creating a new video format, at least for me or for this channel, wherein I will be reading and reacting to Reddit stories, each with a different theme every week. So, welcome to Reading Reddit, and today we will be reading Am I the Asshole Posts in Lost Edition. Now, having that said, let's go ahead and dive into these stories. Our first story for today was posted by separate income 635. My husband told my in laws about my assault and I'm upset. Am I the asshole? Let's see. Hi, I'm 29, female. I've been with my husband, 30 male, since high school, so I've known him and his family for well over a decade. My husband has three brothers. He's boy number two. And his parents are very social, and so there are always a ton of people at his home. One of the people who is over a lot is my husband's godfather. The entire family pretty much views him as a nice guy who is from a different generation and doesn't understand that his creepy comments aren't appropriate. My husband has told me about many of these comments over the years. For example, he once told my mother in law that she has a nice rack and asked if my father in law gets her off. Apparently, she was shocked, but everyone just kind of laughed about it. He also refers to me as my husband's main squeeze. These are just a few of his comments, but there are many more, and everyone just kinds of accepts that it's just how he is. It's strange to me that they're okay being around someone so vulgar when my mother in law and father in law are very Catholic and don't really joke about sex. My mother in law is the type who gets uncomfortable and leaves the room when we're watching a movie and a sex scene comes on. The summer between my junior and senior years of high school, my husband's family had a pool party at their house. It was for the parents, but each son was allowed to invite one friend over, which is why I was there. There were probably 100 people there, including my husband's godfather. My husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, me, my husband's older brother, and another friend were all taking shots without the parents realizing. It was both my and my husband's first time drinking, and so we were obviously both hammered by the end of the night. His parents let me sleep over because the party went so late, but they had a rule that I wasn't allowed to sleep in my husband's room at their house until we were married, which I totally understand given their views. So I slept in the basement. I think I already know where this is going. Pretty shortly after I started trying to fall asleep, my husband's godfather came into the room. He was clearly hammered as well. I was confused and didn't know why he was there. I don't want to get into the details, but he touched me inappropriately and stood in front of me. I honestly don't understand why I didn't run away or scream. Maybe it was the liquor or the fear. Probably, girl. But I completely froze. After it was over, I called my mom to come pick me up at 3 a.m. because I was too afraid to be in that basement alone. I didn't tell her or anyone what happened because I felt so humiliated. I just told my mom that I drank too much and didn't want my boyfriend's parents to know. I'd been with my husband for around a year at that point, but the extent of our physical relationship was just us making out. We were both from a Catholic school, and so this was my first sexual experience. Oh my God. The first person I told was my best friend from college, and she helped me understand that what happened was assault and that it was not my fault. I was nervous and ashamed to tell my husband for a long time, but a month ago, my husband was telling me about another weird comment his godfather made. I listened and then told my husband what he did to me. He was furious, to say the least, and said he failed to protect me since it happened at his house while he was upstairs. Surprisingly, he wasn't upset I waited so long to tell him because I think he could tell how sad the situation made me and that I was ashamed. He told me he'd make sure I never saw the godfather again, and I said I was okay seeing him as long as he was there. But my husband insisted I'd never be around him again. At first, I was happy with how he handled it, and I thought it brought us closer together because he was so kind and understanding towards me. But he ended up calling his mother without my permission and telling her that we were no longer going to the parties if the godfather was there. He also told her that he shouldn't be at any events with children. My mother in law asked why, and my husband told her the godfather assaulted me in high school and then proceeded to tell her all of the graphic details. The only reason I even know about this conversation is because a few days ago we went to their house. My mother in law pulled me aside, hugged me, and told me how sorry she was that I'd been hurt in her home when I was a teenager. She started crying and gave me a glass angel figurine she bought for me, and she said she'd pay for me to see a therapist or anything I need to heal from this. Like my husband, she feels responsible since it happened at their house and I was a minor at the time, but I told her that it wasn't her fault and I was okay. I was very upset with my husband for telling his mom, and now his whole family knows my deepest, darkest secret. My husband said his hands were tied because he wanted to make sure I was never in the same room as his godfather, and he also felt responsible to let his family know since his sister in law is expecting her first child and he doesn't want anyone else he loves to get hurt. I agree with my husband and think the family probably should have known, but I wish he had talked to me about it first instead of calling his mom without telling me and describing what happened to me. I wish he had expressed his concerns and we could have found a solution together. I'm still angry with my husband and told him he betrayed my trust. He feels terrible but also doesn't seem to think he's done anything wrong. Am I the asshole? Wow, that is a lot. Ugh. So that was a pretty heavy one as well. I just said that I wanted to change things up a bit on my channel because I usually upload sad, depressing, and terrifying content. But this first story is sad, terrifying, and disgusting. But anyway, I don't think you're the asshole here, and I don't think your husband's the asshole either. I think the godfather was the asshole because first of all, you were a minor and he did not ask for your consent. It was assault. You were assaulted. You are a victim. Now I do understand why you didn't tell your husband. Um because this was pretty traumatic and I know that a lot of victims feel embarrassed about what happened to them. However, I do believe that the husband was just trying to do what he could at the time, and this meant that not only was he trying to protect you, he was also trying to protect children, other people from this monster. I do agree with his decision of telling his mother about it because that way they would stop letting this monster into their house and exposing other people to him. However, I don't agree with him not asking for your permission first. And I definitely don't agree with what the husband did when he told his mother all of the details of what transpired. I mean, it's not his story to tell. It should have been you who told her if you wanted to, and you clearly didn't want to because you were embarrassed. I mean, you kept this for well over a decade, and yet the husband, your husband, decided to tell it as if it were his own story, where it was his own experience. But however, I don't think he's an asshole either, as I've mentioned. Of course, the parents, his family also did not know. The only asshole I see in the story is the godfather. And I just hope that he didn't do this to anyone else. However, considering how many parties he's been to in this home and that some of these parties had hundreds of people, it's very, very possible that he did this to someone else as well. And that's terrifying. And that's that just really sucks. Anyway, Separate dash income 365, you are not the asshole. Now, if you want to read other people's comments and reactions to this, I will be linking all of these posts in the description box. So if you want to read that another time, if you want to read that in your own voice and not mine, you can go ahead and check these out in the links provided below. Okay, next one. Oh, this was posted by, we don't know because the account has been deleted and this was posted 6 months ago. Am I the asshole for attacking my mother in law after she almost caused the death of my 6 month old? For context, I, 25 female, have been married to my husband, 30 male, for 1 year, and we have been together for three. We had our baby daughter 6 months ago after a very complicated pregnancy. I should probably make it clear that I am a tan, curly haired Latina while my husband is a blonde, blue eyed white man. That baby is probably so beautiful. I've gotten along greatly with my husband's family aside from, you guessed it, my mother in law. She's always been very cold with me, even though I tried to be very nice. She's even gone as far as to calling me a spick. My husband has always been on my side and always shut her down whenever she made rude remarks on backhanded comments. The two things that really struck a nerve with me were when we announced our engagement. For context, it was a family dinner. Everyone was ecstatic except my mother in law. And instead of congratulating us in a proper way, she said in a very harsh tone, "Oh wow, honestly, I didn't think it would last. Congrats, I guess." This really hurt us, even though I know she doesn't like me. I was more than excited to officially become part of the family, and when we announced our pregnancy at a family cookout, while everyone congratulated us, she started crying and went inside the house. I followed her to make sure she was okay, as I thought that she was just overjoyed. And oh boy, was I wrong. When I asked if she was okay, she went completely off on me, saying I was ruining the bloodline and that she refused to believe her bloodline would be ruined by a spick like me. I was floored by her comment and went back out without saying a word. I told my husband about what my mother in law said, and he was visibly upset and told me that her opinion didn't matter and that the baby and I was all he needed. Anyways, fast forward 6 months, our beautiful baby girl was thriving and she had beautiful tan skin, blue eyes, and long black luscious curls. See, beautiful baby. I don't think I have ever fallen in love the way I did when I finally got to meet her. She was definitely worth everything. Anyways, my mother in law always hated my daughter's hair and would make comments about how my daughter's hair looked like a nest and suggested cutting it off. I always shut her down, of course, because her hair is very thick and beautiful. Well, now to the situation, my husband's job requires him to travel out of state. I also work, so I would always leave my daughter with my parents when I had to. One day, I get a call that my mother was in a car accident and was rushed to the hospital. I then drove to my parents' house as fast as I could to get my dad and my daughter. I obviously didn't want to take my daughter to the hospital, so I called my husband and he suggested leaving our daughter with his parents for a while, and he would be on the first flight back. Luckily, there was a flight the same day, so my daughter wouldn't be with my in laws for much time. I should also add this would be the first time my mother in law is with the baby without one of us there. I drop the baby off and head to the hospital with my father. If anyone was wondering, my mom wasn't severely injured, just a minor concussion and a fractured wrist. But if you've ever been to the hospital, you'd know that the waiting time is incredibly long. So, about 5 hours later, we were finally good to go home, and my husband is on his way from the airport, and we decided to meet up at my in-laws house. When I got to the house, I knocked on the door multiple times but to no avail, which is weird because the lights were on. I started calling my mother-in-law because I thought maybe she didn't hear me, and I called 4 times with no answer. So now I'm starting to get worried. I start banging on the door like crazy when my father-in-law pulls up into the driveway and asks what I was doing. I started explaining to him and he quickly opens the door. I start yelling for my mother in law and I get no response. I run upstairs while father in law searches downstairs. When I reached the bedroom, what I saw completely broke my heart. I see my mother in law trying to wake my baby, panicking. I look at my daughter and she is completely red, swollen. Her hair is short and blonde. The moment I saw this, I started yelling like a crazy person, grabbed my daughter, and yelled at my father in law to call an ambulance as I run down the stairs with my baby when my husband arrives. I was screaming and crying, spewing incoherent words. After what felt like an eternity, the ambulance arrived and we rushed to the emergency room where they took my baby and started doing everything they could to save her. My mother in law stayed at home and my parents went home to rest, which is understandable. I was finally able to explain to them what had happened, and it's safe to say that both my husband and father in law were furious. About 2 hours in, my mother in law arrives, and without thinking, I jump on her and start screaming and hitting her. My husband manages to get me off of her, and father in law escorts her out of the hospital. The doctors finally come out and tell me that my daughter will be okay. She simply had an allergic reaction to all the chemicals, so they had to shave off the remainder of her hair. He also says that if I hadn't found her when I did, her chances of making it would have been close to none. My husband and I were so relieved to hear our baby girl was okay. We stayed overnight in the hospital and were good to go. When we got home, my husband and I had a serious conversation and decided we would go no contact with mother in law, and I would leave my job to stay with my daughter until she was ready to start school, as I no longer wanted to take any chances. After a while, our phone started getting bombarded with messages from relatives, some taking our side and the rest taking my mother in law's, saying that I was an asshole for attacking her as it wasn't going to help my baby. We took it to social media and shared that we would be going no contact with my mother in law and filing for a restraining order, and that we would not hesitate to block and go no contact on anyone else who decides to defend her actions. I also wanted to add that my father in law has decided to divorce my mother in law as he cannot stand to look at her, so at least my daughter will get to grow up with her paternal grandfather. Anyways, here is where I want to ask: was I wrong for attacking her? Should I have just yelled at her for her to leave and taken a different approach? Am I the asshole? Sorry for any grammar mistakes or typos. English is not my first language. Oh, and she has an update, a follow up on this. Hello, I thought I would provide some more info. It's only been 2 days since this situation has happened. Yes, we have filed. Unfortunately, it is taking longer than needed. Yes, the doctor spoke to me regarding filing. They were the ones who advised us to do, even though we really wanted to anyways. Yes, we are suing, although some of you brought up a good point of waiting for my father in law's divorce to be finalized so that he is not affected. I'm not sure if he will be affected either way, but I will be asking my lawyer about this. We have blocked a few relatives and blocked my mother in law as well. Oh my gosh. Okay, wow. Whoa, 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 whoa. That was even more intense than the first one, I think. Dear OP, whoever you are, because you deleted your account, you are not the asshole, my dear. Your mother in law is. And I'm so glad that your father in law has decided to get a divorce, because who would want to live the rest of their lives with a woman like that? Imagine being so racist that you decide to dye a 6 month old baby's hair, or not even dye, maybe bleach it, because from a jet black, it turned blonde. So I think it was bleach, not regular hair dye. And that, oh my God, that also stings a lot. I've dyed my hair multiple times. I've bleached my hair multiple times and it hurts. It really stings. So imagine what that baby felt like, because obviously they have thinner scalps than we do. And oh, I just, why would you do such a thing? I don't even know how to react to this, but I'm glad that your husband thinks the same. I'm glad that your father in law decided to divorce that crazy woman. And yes, she deserves everything that you did, probably even more. If it were me, I would have probably done worse than just beat her up and hit her a few times. She almost killed your baby. I mean, who wouldn't react that way? Also, everyone who got blocked for defending your mother in law definitely deserves it. And I just hope that they somehow realize that she is in the wrong for this and not you. But yes, you are not the asshole, she is. This is a short one, a lot shorter compared than the first two. My father in law locked my 5-year old daughter out of their house. I was in the bathroom when I walked out and noticed my daughter was outside crying. She is 5 years old. Apparently, my father in law set her on the porch swing and locked the door as punishment for taking a toy from my son, and I lost my mind. I started yelling at them and telling them it's cold outside. It was 47 degrees, and they could have put her in timeout instead of doing that to her, and it's mental abuse. He got pissed and told us all to leave, and now my husband isn't talking to me. I apologized to my in laws for overreacting, but I just feel like they really went about this the wrong way. Clarification: I have one daughter and two sons. She took a toy from my son, and that's what started all of this. Hmm. Okay, so I'm not going to read any of the comments from this. I'm just going to decide on my own. Girl, you are not the asshole. Why? Maybe because I think the husband was trying to tell her it wasn't that cold and it was outside. We can see her. However, it's a very dangerous world that we live in. And if you locked a 5-year old girl outside alone, in a blink of an eye, within a blink of an eye, she could have been taken by someone or she could have run off, and a lot of terrible things could have happened. So, a lot of bad things could happen in a span of a few minutes. So, honestly, I don't think she was the asshole for this. Um, maybe she did overreact a little bit when she started yelling. However, I don't think she's an asshole for this. Her father-in-law is kind of an asshole as well as her husband because should have had your wife's back. Okay, so based on other people's comments, they don't think she overreacted at all. And they think that what she did was justified. Let's look at a few of these comments. Locking a 5-year old is too much, especially over a toy. It's okay to stand up for your daughter. True. My mother locked me on a porch when I was 5 or so. I still remember screaming and crying with fear. I am now 47. This was awful, and the worst part was I never remembered why I was out there. I was so young that I couldn't understand it. All I remember is how terrified I felt. You are not the asshole, you are the parent, and you have the right to decide how your child is punished. I also think that this punishment seems weird and extreme. Does your husband agree with the punishment? Um, OP, I think I forgot to mention who our OP is, and that is massive underscore fox underscore 5929. Sorry about that. He agreed with it at first, but after coming home and thinking about it, he agrees it was too much. My mother in law was holding the door shut and laughing at her. What? She was laughing at the child. The mother in law was holding the door shut and was laughing at the daughter who was trying to get in. Obviously, your in laws are the asshole here. I don't need to read any more of the comments. I've decided you are not the asshole your in laws are. Thank you. All right. So, our next story, our fourth story for today, is from filmmaker 1185. Am I the asshole for having my in laws escorted off of my property? My husband and I, both 39 male, were together for 10 years and married for 7 before he unexpectedly died last year. Before and throughout our marriage, his parents never really liked me. I have no proof of this, but I think it was because he was bi and I robbed them of their chance for him to marry a woman and have children. Despite how they felt about me, I was not only always cordial to them, but I allowed them to use of my two lake houses for whenever they wanted. The first lake house was owned by my parents since before my brothers and I were born. The second lake house was purchased by my brothers and I when the original owner decided to sell. The houses are right next to each other and perfect for large family gatherings. During our time together, my husband's family celebrated holidays and extended weekends at the houses. It was never an issue because I was at almost each of those getaways anyway. Recently, my husband's youngest brother got engaged, and I knew his family would be throwing him and his fiancée a party like they did for all of their kids, except for my husband and I. But we didn't have a big ceremony or anything, so I can't prove the lack of party had anything to do with me. I also expected an invitation because I was incredibly friendly with the youngest brother, having gone to many sporting events and concerts with him. But no one ever mentioned anything about a party, and when I finally asked the parents, I was told that they weren't doing anything big. Fast forward to last Monday, and I got a text from one of the neighbors at the lake asking if I'd be joining the family for the party. Come to find out, the whole family was at the lake house with guests and had been for that entire weekend to celebrate the engagement. At first, I was not bothered by not being there, but then I got another text from the neighbor one night telling me that my mother in law drunkenly admitted that I was not invited. So I drove over an hour to town with the paperwork listing my brothers and I as owners and showed the sheriff the text message stating I wasn't invited and told them I wanted everyone off of the properties. The sheriff and some deputies escorted me to the houses to shut the party down. The sheriff entered the party to shut it down, telling the guests that the owner wanted everyone gone. Mom and dad in law threw a fit, and that's when the sheriff arrested them for public intoxication. Youngest brother is mad at me, but his fiance is on my side. The brothers and sisters are also split as to whether or not I was wrong. But there seems to be a common consensus that I could have handled things differently, so am I the asshole? Edit to add. There's always been a hidden lockbox with keys in them. I don't know that anyone has ever had copies made, but I paid the neighbor's husband to change all the locks on both houses and to lock the garage doors and disable the garage door opener. I had to get back home because I have a cat and dog to look after, otherwise, I would have changed everything myself. Ooh. First of all, filmmaker 1185, I am terribly sorry for your loss. And no, you are definitely not the asshole here. Because based on what you've written on your post, it seems like they never really, at least the mother in law and the father in law, they never treated you well. Or I guess they never really cared enough to show you that they accepted you in the family. So I don't think you're the asshole here because other than their poor treatment of you, uh this was your property, and not did they only keep this event a secret from you, they did not invite you to a party that was being held at your property. I mean, it would have been a different situation if this property was yours and your husband's, but it wasn't. It was yours and your family's. And I don't think you mentioned that they asked for your permission to use the lake houses either. So no, you're definitely not the asshole they are. And honestly, I loved how you handled this. I really love how you handled this. Uh that's Imagine how many people were there, how many people heard what the sheriff said about the owner of the property wanting everyone out of the house. That's just that. It sounds like it came straight from a movie. I love it. I love it so much. Let's read a few comments. It was bad enough that you were not invited, but not invited to a party on your own property that they used without even asking you. Definitely not the asshole. Sort of off topic, but wouldn't you be held legally liable if someone was injured on the property? It seems irresponsible for them to host a party in someone else's home without their permission. Yes, and not just irresponsible, they should be ashamed of themselves, honestly. Did you ever know that you are my hero? You are everything I want to be. Seriously, though, the fact that they used your property and tried to hide it, I think your nuclear war option was totally justified. They fucked around, so they found out. And I couldn't agree more. Oh, I love this so much. Anyway, okay, so our last story for today is from Narco Muvs. Am I the asshole for recording my mother in law's insults and showing them to my husband? Sounds like another juicy one. For context, my husband, 31 male, and I, 29 female, have been married for 3 years. Throughout our relationship, his mother, let's call her Jane, has never liked me. She's always making snide remarks and passive aggressive comments, but she's careful to do it when he isn't around. Bitch. Whenever I bring it up to him, he says I'm exaggerating or misinterpreting her. Things came to a head a month ago during a visit to Jane's house. Jane was in top form, making little jabs about my cooking, my job, and even the way I dress. I was at my breaking point, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. As you should. I started using the voice memo app on my iPhone to record our interactions whenever I was alone with Jane. And over the next few weeks, I managed to capture several of her comments. She said things like, "He must really love you to put up with your cooking." And "Your job is so cute, it must be nice not to have any real responsibilities." Last weekend, after Jane left our house for another visit, I decided it was time to show him the truth. I played the recordings for him. He looked stunned and didn't say anything for a few minutes. Then he said he couldn't believe his mom would say those things. But then, instead of being angry at Jane, he turned on me. He accused me of violating his mother's privacy and said I went too far by recording her without her knowledge. He felt betrayed that I didn't talk to him first before resorting to this. I tried to explain that I had talked to him multiple times and he did not believe me, but he wasn't having it. He packed a bag and went to stay at his parents' house to cool off. He is still upset with me and hasn't come home yet. I don't know if I went too far or if this was the wake up call Jane needed. So, am I the asshole for recording my mother in law's insults and showing them to my husband? Honestly, this should be a wake up call to you. You're definitely not the asshole here, but it's just not just your mother in law, it's your husband as well. And it really shows who raised him. I think the biggest asshole here is actually your husband and not your mother in law. Your mother in law takes second place, don't worry about that. But your husband's an even bigger asshole than his mother because you've tried talking to him multiple times, you've told him multiple times about the mean things that has been said to you, and yet he doesn't believe you. So what do? You find a solution, you recorded everything so that you have proof, and yet he still blames you and says that you don't have any respect for his mother's privacy. Doesn't he realize that his mother does not have any respect for you at all? She doesn't have any respect for you in general, and yet he's still taking her side. He's probably an asshole as well, and you just didn't realize it. He was probably gaslighting you the entire time. Oh my god. So let's take a look at some of the comments. First comment: your husband is gaslighting you and has been for several years. You have to prove your mother in law harasses and insults you behind his back, and then even when he learns the truth, he blames you for recording it. You shouldn't be trying to explain your side to him. You should be kicking his ass to the curb right now. The fact that he left and went to her house because he's mad at you is insane. He either has been messed up in the head by this lady or he's a narcissist himself. At least he's messed up and adopted some of her narcissistic tendencies. It's not normal and it's not okay. He should be begging you for forgiveness right now and finding a therapist to unlearn some of these toxic behaviors he's carrying around. If it was me, I wouldn't be continuing in the marriage if he isn't willing to profusely apologize, draw and maintain strong boundaries with crazy mama, and start working on intense counseling. I wouldn't want to be married or subjected to someone with such unhealthy and toxic behaviors. Your son, your husband sounds like a spineless mommy's boy. True. I saw another comment earlier tonight, something like, "When you take your mom's tit out of your mouth and stop choking on her milk, we can talk." He probably knows she was doing it. That's what his actions say. He's flustered because they were caught. Honestly, you you are not the asshole. Your husband and your mother-in-law are assholes. That's it. I'm so sorry, OP, but I don't think you should be married to this guy. I don't think you should go through with this marriage if this is how you are treated. You shouldn't be married to a guy who lets anyone treat you this way, honestly, and doesn't trust you. And when you figure something out, so he would believe you, he gets angry, he gets upset, and blames you for it. Divorce his ass, OP. And yeah, those are the stories for today. I hope you found them interesting and enjoyed at least some of them. The first two are the two are very sad, very depressing, not very mindful, not very demure. But thank you so much for watching our first Reading Reddit episode. I hope you guys stick around, subscribe, and hope to see you guys on my next video.